Okay. Very good. Now let's see. I'm going to, okay, very good. All right. Let me just briefly say to those who might watch the video later that we are continuing with our reading of Ulysses, and we are in the middle of the Aeolus chapter. And on we go. So start. Let us hope. J.J. O'Malloy, about to follow men, said quietly to Stephen, I hope you will live to see it published. Miles, one moment. He went into the inner office, closing the door behind him. Come along, Stephen, the professor said. That's fine, isn't it? It has the prophetic vision, Fuit Ilium, the sack of windy Troy. Kingdoms of this world, the masters of the Mediterranean, are fellaheen today. The first newsboy came pattering down the stairs at their heels and rushing out in the street, yelling, Racing special! Dublin, I have much, much to learn. They turned to the left along Abbey Street. I have a vision too, Stephen said. Yes, the professor said, skipping to get into step. Crawford will follow. Another newsboy shot past them, yelling as he ran, Racing special! Next.
Dear dirty Dublin, Dubliners, two Dublin vestals, Stephen said, elderly and pious, have lived 50 and 53 years in Funbally's Lane. Where's that? The professor asked. Off Blackpits, Stephen said. Damp night, reeking of hungry dough. Against the wall, face glistening tallow under her fustian shawl. Frantic hearts. Akasic records. Quicker, darling. On now, dare it. Let there be life. They want to see the views of Dublin from the top of Nelson's Pillar. They save up 3 and 10 pence in a red tin letterbox money box. They shake out the 3-penny bits and sixpences and coax out the pennies with the blade of a knife. 2 and 3 in silver, 1 and 7 in coppers. They put it in their bonnets. They put on their bonnets and best clothes, take their umbrellas for fear it may come on to rain. Wise virgins, Professor McHugh said. Next.
Life on the raw. They buy 1 and 4pence worth of brawn and 4 slices of pan loaf at the North City dining rooms in Marlborough Street from Miss Kate Collins, proprietress. They purchase 4 and 20 ripe plums from a girl at the foot of Nelson's Pillar to take off the thirst of the brawn. They give 2 3-penny bits to the gentleman at the turnstile and begin to waddle slowly up the winding staircase, grunting, encouraging other, afraid of the dark, panting. One asking the other, have you the brawn? Praising God and the Blessed Virgin, threatening to come down, peeping at the air slits. Glory be to God. They had no idea it was that high. Their names are Anne Kearns and Florence McCabe. Anne Kearns has the lumbago, from which she rubs on Lourdes water, given her by a lady who got a bottleful from a passionate father. Florence McCabe takes a crubine and a bottle of double X for supper every Saturday. Antithesis, the professor said, nodding twice. Vestal virgins, I can see them. What's keeping our friend? He turned. A bevy of scampering newsboys rushed down the steps, scampering in all directions, yelling their white papers, fluttering. Hard after them, Michael Crawford appeared on the steps, his hat all in his face, his scarlet face, talking with J.J. O'Malloy. Come along, the professor said, waving his arms. He set off again to walk by Stephen's side. Next, please.
Return of Bloom. Yes, he said, I see them. Mr. Bloom, breathless, caught in a whirl of wild newsboys near the offices of the Irish Catholic and Dublin Penny Journal, called, "Mr. Crawford, a moment. Telegraph, racing special." "What is it?" Miles Crawford said, falling back a pace. A newsboy cried in Mr. Bloom's face, "Terrible tragedy in Rathmines. A child bit by a bellows." Interview with the editor. Just this ad," Mr. Bloom said, pushing through towards the steps, puffing and taking the cutting from his pocket. "I spoke with Mr. Keyes just now. He'll give you a renewal for 2 months, he says. After, he'll see. But he wants a pair to call attention in the Telegraph too, the Sunday Pink. And he wants it, if it's not too late, I told Councillor Nettie from the Kilkenny People. I can have access to it in the National Library. House of Keyes, don't you see? His name is Keyes. It's a play on the name, but he practically promised he'd give the renewal, but he wants just a little puff. What will I tell him, Mr. Crawford? Next.
Hey, KMA, will you tell him he can kiss my arse? Miles Crawford said, throwing out his arms for emphasis. Tell him that straight from the stable. A bit nervy. Look out for squalls. All off for a drink, arm in arm. Lenehan's yachting cap on the cage below. Usual Blarney. Wonder is that young Daedalus the moving spirit? Has a good pair of boots on him today. Last time I saw him, he had his heels on view. Been walking in muck somewhere, careless chap. What was he doing in Irishtown? Well, Mr. Bloom said, his eyes returning, if I can get the design, I suppose it's worth a short par. He'll give the ad, I think. I'll tell him. He can kiss KMRIA. He can kiss my Royal Irish arse, Miles Crawford cried loudly over his shoulder. Anytime he likes, tell him. While Mr. Bloom stood weighing the point and about to smile, he strode on jerkily. Next, please.
Raising the wind. Nulla bona, Jack, he said, raising his hand to his chin. I'm up to here. I've been through the hoop myself. I was looking for a fellow to back a bill for me no later than last week. You must take the will for the deed. Sorry, Jack. With a heart and a half, if I could raise the wind anyhow. J.J. O'Malloy pulled a long face and walked on silently. They caught up on the others and walked abreast. When they have eaten the brawn and the bread and wiped their 20 fingers in the paper the bread was wrapped in, they go near to the railings. Something for you, Professor explained to Miles Crawford. 2 old Dublin women on the top of Nelson's pillar. Next, please.
Some column. That's what Wadler once said. That's new, Miles Crawford said. That's copy. Out for the Waxies Dargle. 2 old trickies, what? But they're afraid the pillar will fall, Stephen went on. They see the roofs and argue about where the different churches are. Rathmines, Blue Dome, Adam and Eve's, St. Lawrence O'Toole's. But it makes them giddy to look, so they pull up their skirts. Those slightly rambunctious females. Easy all, Miles Crawford said, no poetic license. We're in the archdiocese here. And settled down on their striped petticoats, peering up at the statue of the one-handled adulterer. One-handled adulterer, the professor cried. I like that. I see the idea. I see what you mean. Dames donate Dublin's sits, speed pills, velocitus, aerolitz belief. It gives them a crick in their neck, Stephen said, and they're too tired to look up or down to speak. They put the bag of plums between them and eat the plums out of it one after another, wiping off with their handkerchiefs the plum juice that dribbles out of their mouths and spitting the plum stones slowly out between the railings. He gave a sudden, loud, young laugh as it closed. Lenehan and Mr. O'Madden Burke, hearing, turned, beckoned, and led on across towards Mooney's. Finished? Miles Crawford said. So long as they do no worse. Next, please.
Sophist wallops haughty Helen Square on proboscis. Spartans gnash molars. Ithacans vow pen is champ. You remind me of Antisthenes, the professor said, a disciple of Gorgias, the sophist. It is said of him that none could tell if he were bitter against others or against himself. He was the son of a noble and a bondwoman, and he wrote a book in which he took away the palm of beauty from Argive Helen and handed it to poor Penelope. Poor Penelope. Penelope rich. I made ready to cross O'Connell Street. Hello there, Central. At various points along the 8 lines tramcars with motionless trolleys stood in their tracks, bound for or from Rathmines, Rathfarnham, Blackrock, Kingstown and Dalkey, Sandymount Green, Ringsend and Sandymount Tower, Donnybrook, Palmerston Park, and Upper Rathmines, all still becalmed in short circuit. Hackney cars, cabs, delivery wagons, mail vans, private brooms, aerated mineral water floats with rattling crates of bottles, rattled, rolled, horse-drawn, rapidly. What, and likewise where? But what do you call it, Miles Crawford asked. Where did they get the plums next?
Virgilian, says pedagogue, sophomore plumps for old man Moses. Call it, wait, professor said, opening his long lips wide to reflect. Call it, let me see, call it Deus nobis hac otia fetsit. No, Stephen said, I call it a Pishka site of Palestine, or the parable of the plums. I see, the professor said. He laughed richly. I see, he said again with new pleasure, Moses and the promised land. We gave him that idea, he added to J.J. O'Malloy. The ratio is cynosure this fair June day. J.J. O'Malloy sent a weary sidelong glance towards the statue and held his peace. I see, the professor said. He halted on Sir John Gray's pavement island and peered aloft at Nelson through the meshes of his wry smile. Diminished digits proved too titillating for frisky frumps and wimbles, Flo Wangles, yet can you blame them? One-handed adulterer, he said, smiling grimly. That tickles me, I must say. Tickled the old ones too, Miles Crawford said, if the God Almighty truth was known. Next, please.
Okay. Pineapple Rock, Lemon Plat, Butterscotch. A sugar stick girl shoveling scoopfuls of cream for a Christian brother. Some school treat. Bad for their tummies. Lozenger and comfit manufacturer to His Majesty the King. God, save, are sitting on his throne, sucking red jubes white. A somber YMCA young man, watchful among the warm, sweet fumes of Graham lemons, placed a throwaway in the hand of Mr. Bloom. Heart-to-heart talks. Who? Me? No. Blood of the Lamb. His slow feet walked him riverward, reading. Are you saved? All are washed in the blood of the Lamb. God wants blood victim, birth, hymen, martyr, war, foundation of a building, sacrifice, kidney, burnt offering, Druid's altar. Elijah is coming. Dr. John Dewey, restorer of church in Zion, is coming. Is coming, is coming, is coming. all heartily welcome. Next.
Playing game. Tori and Alexander last year. Polygamy. His wife will put stopper on that. Where was that ad about some Birmingham firm, the luminous crucifix, our saviour? Wake up in the dead of night and see him on the wall hanging. Pepper's ghost idea. Iron nails running. Phosphorus it must be done with. If you leave a bit of codfish, for instance. I could see the bluey silver over it. Night I went down to the pantry in the kitchen. Don't like all the smells in it waiting to rush out. What was it she wanted? Oh, the Malaga raisins. Thinking of Spain. Before Rudy was born. The phosphorescence, that bluey, greeny, very good for the brain. From Butler's Monument's house corner, he glanced along Bachelor's Walk. Daedalus' daughter there still outside Dylan's auction rooms. Must be selling off some old furniture. Knew her eyes at once from the father. Lobbing about waiting for him. Home always breaks up when the mother goes. 15 children he had, birthed every year almost. That's in their theology, or the priest won't give the poor woman the confession, the absolution. Increase and multiply. Did you ever hear such an idea? Eat you out of house and home. No families themselves to feed. Living on the fat of the land. Their butteries and larders. I'd like to see them do the black fast, the young cupper, crossbuns. One meal and a collation for fear he'd collapse on the altar. A housekeeper of one of those fellas, if you could pick it out of her. Never pick it out of her, like getting LSD out of him. Does himself well, no guests, all for number one. Watching his water, bring your own bread and butter, his reverence, mum's the word. Next, please.
Good Lord. Poor child's dress is in tatters. Underfed she looks too. Potatoes and Marge and potatoes. It's after they feel it. Proof of the pudding. Undermines the Constitution. As he set foot on O'Connell Bridge, a puffball of smoke plumed up from the parapet. Brewery barge with export stout, England. Sea air sours it, I heard. Be interesting someday, get a pass through Hancock to see the brewery. Regular world in itself. Vats of porter, wonderful. Rat skin in too. Drink themselves bloated as big as a collie floating, dead drunk on the porter. Drink till they puke again, like Christians. Imagine drinking that. Rats, vats. Well, of course, if we knew all the things. Looking down, he saw, flapping strongly, wheeling between the gaunt quay walls, gulls. Rough weather outside. If I threw myself down, Reuben J's son must have swallowed a good bellyful of that sewage. 1 8 too much. It's the droll way he comes out with the things. Knows how to tell a story, too. They wheeled lower, looking for grub. Wait. He threw down among them a crumpled paper ball. Elijah, 32 feet per sec, is come. Not a bit. The ball bobbed in unheeded on the wake of swells, floated under by the bridge piers. Not such damn fools. Also, the day I threw that stale cake out of the Aaron's King, picked it up in the wake 50 yards astern. Lived by their wits. They wheeled, flapping. The hungry, famished gull flaps o'er the waters dull. That's how poets write, the similar sounds. But then Shakespeare has no rhymes, blank verse. The flow of the language it is, the thoughts, solemn. Hamlet, I am thy father's spirit, doomed for a certain time to walk the earth. 2 apples a penny, 2 for a penny. His gaze passed over the glazed apples, serried on her stand. Next.
Australians they must be this time of year. Shiny peels, polishes them up with a rag or a handkerchief. Wait, those poor birds. He halted again and bought from the old apple woman 2 Banbury cakes for a penny and broke the brittle paste and threw its fragments down into the Liffey. See that? The gulls swooped silently, too, then all from their heights pouncing on prey, gone every morsel. Aware of their greed and cunning, he shook the powdery crumb from his hands. They never expected that. Mana, live on fishy flesh they have all, seabirds, gulls, sea goose, swans from Analifi swim down here sometimes to preen themselves, no accounting for tastes. Wonder what kind is swan meat. Robinson Crusoe had to live on them. They wheeled flapping weakly. I'm not going to throw any more. Penny quite enough. Lot of thanks I get. Not even a caw. They spread foot and mouth disease too. If you cram a turkey, say on chestnut, it tastes like that. Eat pig like pig. But then why is it that saltwater fish are not salty? How is that? His eyes sought answer from the river and saw a rowboat rock at anchor on the treacly swells, lazily its plastered board. Kino's 11 trousers. Next, please.
Good idea, that. Wonder if he pays rent to the corporation. How can you own water, really? It's always flowing in a stream, never the same, which in the stream of life we trace, because life is a stream. All kinds of places are good for ads. That quack doctor for the clap used to be stuck up in all the greenhouses. Never see it now. Strictly confidential. Dr. High Franks. Didn't cost him a red like McGinney, the dancing master's self-advertisement. Got fellas to stick them up, or stick them up himself for that matter, on the QT, running in to loosen a button. Fly by night. Just the place too. Post no bills. Post 110 pills. Some chap with a dose burning him. If he... Oh. Hey. No, no. No, I don't believe it. He wouldn't, surely. No, no. Mr. Bloom moved forward, raising his troubled eyes. Think no more about that. After 1. Time ball on the ballast office is down. Done sink time. Fascinating little book that is of Sir Robert Ball's. Parallax. I never exactly understood. There's a priest. Could ask him. It's Greek. Parallel. Parallax. Met him Picoses, she called it, till I told her about the transmigration. Oh, rocks. Next, please.
Mr. Bloom smiled. Oh, rocks, at 2 windows of the ballast office. She's right, after all. Only big words for ordinary things on account of the sound. He's not exactly witty, can be rude too. Blurt out what I was thinking. Still, I don't know. He used to say Ben Dollard had a bass barrel-tone voice. He has legs like barrels, and you'd think he was singing into a barrel. Now, isn't that wit? They used to call him Big Ben. Not half as witty as calling him bass barrel-tone. Appetite like an albatross. Get outside a barn of beef. Powerful man he was at storing away #1 bass. Barrel of bass, see? It all works out. A procession of white-smocked men marched slowly towards them along the gutter. Scarlet sashes across their boards. Bargains. Like that priest they are this morning. We have sinned, we have suffered. He read the scarlet letters on their 5 tall white hats. HELYS. Wisdom Heelys. Y, lagging behind, drew a chunk of bread from under his foreboard, crammed it into his mouth and munched as he walked. Our staple food, 3 bob a day, walking along the gutters, street after street. Just keep skin and bone together, bread and skilly. They are not boiled, no, McGlade's men. Doesn't bring in any business either. I suggested to him about a transparent show cart with 2 smart girls sitting inside writing letters, copybooks, envelopes, blotting paper. I bet that would have caught on. Smart girls writing something catch the eye at once. Everyone dying to know what she's writing. Get 20 of them around if you stare at nothing. Have a finger in the pie. Women too, curiosity, pillar of salt. Wouldn't have it, of course, because he didn't think of it himself first. Or the ink bottle, I suggested, with a false stain of black celluloid. His ideas for ads, like plum trees, potted under the obituaries, cold meat department. You can't lick him. What? Our envelopes. Hello, Jones. Where are you going? Can't stop. What? Robinson. I am hastening to purchase the only reliable ink eraser, Cancel, sold by Healy's Limited, 85 James Street. Well, out of that truck I am. Devil of a job it was collecting accounts of those convents. Tranquilla Convent. There was a nice nun there, really sweet face. Wimples suited her small head. Sister, sister. I am sure she was crossed in love by her eyes. Very hard to bargain with that sort of woman. I disturbed her at her devotions that morning, but glad to communicate with the outside world. Our great day, she said, Feast of Our Lady of Mount Carmel, sweet name too, Caramel. She knew, I think she knew by the way if she had married, she would have changed. I suppose they really were short of money. Fried everything in the best butter all the same. No lard for them. My heart's broke eating dripping. They like buttering themselves in and out. Molly tasting it, her veil up. Sister, Pat Claffey, the pawnbroker's daughter. It was a nun, they say, invented barbed wire. Next, please.
He crossed Westmoreland Street, what an apostrophe S had plotted by. Rover's cycle shop. Those races are on today. How long ago was that? Year Phil Gilligan died. We were in Lombard Street West. Wait, was in Tom's. Got the job in Wisdom, Healy's year we met. In Wisdom, Healy's year we married. 6 years, 10 years ago. 94 he died. Yes, that's right. The big fire at Arnott's. Val Dillon was Lord Mayor. The Glencree dinner. Alderman Robert O'Reilly emptying the port into his soup before the flag fell. Bob lapping it for the inner alderman. Couldn't hear what the band played. For what we have already received, may the Lord make us. Lily was a kiddie then. Molly had that elephant gray dress with the braided frogs, man-tailored with self-covered buttons. She didn't like it because I sprained my ankle first day she wore choir picnic at the Sugarloaf. As if that. Old Goodwin's tall hat done up with some sticky stuff. Flies picnic too. Never put a dress on her back like it. Fitted her like a glove. Shoulders and hips. Just beginning to plump it out well. Rabbit pie we had that day. People looking after her. Next.
Happier then. Snug little room that was with the red wallpaper. Dock rolls, 1 and 9 pence a dozen. Millie's tubbing night. American soap I brought, elderflower. Cozy smell of her bathwater. Funny. She looks soaped all over, shapely too. Now photography. Poor Papa's daguerreotype atelier he told me of. Hereditary taste. He walked along the curbstone. Stream of life. What was the name of that priesty-looking chap was always squinting in when he passed? Weak eyes. Woman. Stopped in Citron St. Kevin's parade. Penn Dennis. My memory's getting Penn. Of course, it's years ago. North of the trams, probably. Well, if he couldn't remember the day father's name that he sees every day. Bartel Darcy was the tenant. Just coming out then. Seeing her home after practice. Conceited though, with his waxed up mustache. Gave her that song, Winds That Blow from the South. Windy night. That was I went to fetch her. there, that lodging meeting, on about those lottery tickets after Goodwin's concert in the supper room or oak room of the mansion house he and I behind. Sheet of her music blew out of her hand against the high school railing. Lucky it didn't. Things like that spoiled the effect of a night for her. Professor Godwin linking her in front, shaky on his pens, poor old sot. His farewell concerts, positively last appearance on any stage. Maybe for months and maybe for never. Remembering her laughing at the wind, her blizzard collared up. Corner of Harcourt Road, remember the gust. Boof! Blowing up all her skirts and her boa nearly smothered old God. He did get flushed in the wind. Remember when we got home, raking up the fire and frying up those pieces of lap of mutton for her supper with the chutney sauce she liked and the mulled rum. Could see her in the bedroom from the hearth, unclamping the busk of her stays. Right. Next, please.
Swish and soft flop, her stays went on the bed. All was warm from her. Always liked to let herself out. Sitting there after till near 2, taking out her hairpins. Millie tucked up in her Betty house. Happy? That was the night. Oh, Mr. Bloom, how do you do? Oh, how do you do, Mrs. Breen? No use complaining. How's Molly these times? Haven't seen her for ages. In the pink, Mr. Bloom said gaily. Millie has a position down in Mullingar, you know. Go away. Isn't that grand for her? Yes, and the photographer's there. Getting on like a house on fire. How are all your charges? All in the baker's list, Mrs. Breen said. Many has she? No other in sight? You're in the black, I see. You've no, Mr. Bloom. I've just come from a funeral. Going to crop up all day, I foresee. Who's dead? When and what did he die of? Turn up like a bad penny. Oh, dear me, Mrs. Breen said. I hope it wasn't any near relation. May as well get her sympathy. Dignam, Mr. Bloom said. An old friend of mine. He died quite suddenly, poor fellow. Heart trouble, I believe. Funeral was this morning. Your funeral's tomorrow. When are you coming through the rye? Diddly diddly, dum dum, diddly diddly. Sad to lose old friends. Mrs. Breen, woman eyes, said melancholily. No, that's enough about that. Just quietly, husband. Oh, and your lord and master. Miss Breen turned up her large eyes. Hasn't lost them anyhow. Oh, don't be talking, she said. He's a caution to rattlesnakes. He's in there now with his law books, finding out the law and libel. He has me heart scalded. Wait till I show you. Next.
Hot muckle turtle vapour and steam of new baked jam pups, roly-poly, poured out from Harrison's. The heavy non-reek tickled the top of Mr. Bloom's gullet. Want to make good pastry, butter, best flour, Damara sugar, or they tasted with the hot tea? Or is it from her? A barefoot Arab stood with the grating, breathing in the fumes. Deadened the gnaw of hunger that way. Pleasure or pain, is it? Penny dinner, knife and fork changed to the table. Opening her handbag, chipped leather, hatpin, ought to have a guard in those things. Sticking a chap's eye in the tram, rummaging, open, money. Please take one. Devil if they lose sixpence. Raise Cain. husband barging. Where's the 10 shillings I gave you on Monday? Are you feeding your little brother's family? Soiled handkerchief, medicine bottle, pastille that was fell. What is she? There must be a new moon out, she said. He's always bad then. Do you know what he did last night? Her hand ceased to rummage. Her eyes fixed themselves on him, wide in alarm, yet smiling. What? Mr. Bloom asked. Let her speak. Look straight in her eyes. I believe you, trust me. Woke me up in the night, she said. Dream he had a nightmare. Inches. Said the ace of spades was walking up the stairs. The ace of spades, Mr. Bloom said. She took a folded postcard from her handbag. Read that, she said. He got it this morning. What is it? Mr. Bloom asked, taking the card. U.P. U.P. up, she said. Someone's taking a rise out of him. It's a great shame for them, whoever he is. Indeed it is, Mr. Bloom said. She took back the card, sighing. And now he's going round to Mr. Menton's office. Next, please.
He's going to take an action for £10,000, he says. She folded the card into her untidy bag and snapped the catch. Same blue serge dress she had 2 years ago. The nap bleaching. Seen its best days. Wispish hair over her ears. And that dowdy toque. 3 old grapes to take the charm out of it. Shabby genteel. She used to be a tasty dresser. Lines round her mouth. Only a year or so older than Molly. See the eye that woman gave her passing? Cruel, the unfair sex. He looked still at her, holding back behind his look its discontent. Pungent mock turtle oxtail mulligatawny. I'm hungry, too. Flakes of pastry on the gusset of her dress. Daub of sugary flour stuck to her cheek. Rhubarb tart with liberal fillings. Rich fruit interior. Josie Powell, that was, in Luke Doyle's long ago. Dolphin's Barn, the charades. U.P. up. Change the subject. Do you ever see anything of Mrs. Beaufoy? Mr. Bloom asked. Mina Purefoy? She said. Philip Beaufoy, I was thinking. Playgoers Club. Matcham often thinks of the master stroke. Did I pull the chain? Yes, the last act. Yes. I just called to ask on the way in. Is she over it? She's in the Lion-In Hospital in Hollis Street. Dr. Horn got her in. She's 3 days bad now. Oh, Mr. Bloom said, I'm sorry to hear that. Yes, Mrs. Breen said, and a house full of kids at home. It's a very stiff birth, the nurse told me. Oh, Mr. Bloom said. His heavy, pitying gaze absorbed her news. His tongue clacked in compassion. I'm sorry to hear that, he said. Poor thing. 3 days. That's terrible for her. Mrs. Breen nodded. She was taken bad on the Tuesday. Mr. Bloom touched her funny bone gently, warning her. Mind, let this man pass. A bony form strode along the curbstone from the river, staring with a rapt gaze into the sunlight through heavy stringed glass. Tight as a skull piece, a tiny hat gripped his head. From his arm, a folded dustcoat, a stick, and an umbrella dangled in a stride. Watch him, Mr. Bloom said. He always walks outside the lampposts. Watch. Who is he, if it's a fair question? Mr. Breen asked. Is he Dottie? His name is Cashel Boyle O'Connor Fitzmaurice Tisdall Farrell, Mr. Bloom said, smiling. Watch. Next, please.
He has enough of them, she said. Dennis will be like that one of these days. She broke off suddenly. There he is, she said. I must go after him. Goodbye. Remember me to Molly, won't you? I will, Mr. Bloom said. He watched her dodge through passers towards the shop fronts. Dennis Breen, in skimpy frock coat and blue canvas shoes, shuffled out of Harrison's, hugging 2 heavy tomes to his ribs. Blown in from the bay, like old times, he suffered her to overtake him without surprise and thrust his dull gray beard towards her, his loose jaw wagging as he spoke earnestly. Meshuggah, off his chump. Mr. Bloom walked on again easily, seeing ahead of him in sunlight the tight skull piece, the dangling stick umbrella dust coat. Going the 2 days, watch him. Out he goes again, one way of getting on in the world, and the other way, the other old mosey lunatic in those duds. Hard times she must have with him. UP up. I'll take my oath that's Alf Bergen or Richie Goulding wrote it for a lark in the Scotch House, I bet anything. Round to Menton's office, his oyster eyes staring at the poster. Be a feast for the gods. He passed the Irish Times. There might be answers lying there, like to answer them all. Good system for criminals. Code. At their lunch now. Clerk with the glasses there doesn't know me. Oh, leave them there to simmer. Enough bother wading through 44 of them. Wanted smart lady typists to aid gentlemen in literary work. I called you naughty darling because I do not like that other world. Please tell me what is the meaning. Please tell me what perfume does your wife. Please tell me who made the world. The way they spring those questions on you. And the other one, Lizzie Twigg, my literary efforts have had the good fortune to meet with the approval of the eminent poet A.E. Mr. George Russell. No time to do her hair, drinking sloppy tea with a book of poetry. Next, please.
Best paper by long chalks for a small lad. Got the provinces now. Cook and general, ex-cuisine, housemaid kept. Wanted live man for spirit counter. Rest girl, horsey, wishes to hear of post in fruit or pork shop. James Carlyle made that. 6.5% dividend. Made a big deal on Coates shares. Kakani, cunning old Scotch hunks. All the toady news. Our gracious and popular viceroy. Bought the Irish field now. Lady Mountcashel has quite recovered after her confinement and rode out with the Ward Union stag hounds at the enlargement yesterday at her throat. An eatable fox. Hot hunters too. Fear injects juices, make it tender enough for them. Riding astride, sit her horse like a man. Weight-carrying huntress. No side saddle or pillion for her, not for Joe. First to meet and in at the death. Strong as a brood mare, some of those horsey women. Swagger around livery stables. Toss off a glass of brandy neat while you'd say knife. That one at the Grosvenor this morning. Up with her on the car. Wish, wish, Stonewall or 5-barred gate put her mount to it. Think that pug-nosed driver did it out of spite. Who is this, she was like? Oh, yes, Mrs. Miriam Dandre that sold me her old wraps and black underclothes in the Shelburne Hotel. Divorced, Spanish-American. Didn't take a feather out of her, my handling them, as if I was her clothes horse. Saw her in the viceregal party when Stubbs, the park ranger, got me in with wheeling of the express. Scavenging what the quality left. High tea. Next, please.
Mayonnaise I poured on the plums, thinking it was custard. Her ears ought to have tingled for a few weeks after. Want to be a bull for her. Born courtesan. No nursery work for her, thanks. Poor Mrs. Purify. Methodist husband, method in his madness. Saffron bun and milk and soda lunch in the educational dairy. Eating with a stopwatch. 32 chews to the minute. Still, his mutton chop whiskers grew. Supposed to be well connected. Theodore's cousin in Dublin Castle. One Tony relative in every family. Hardly annuals he presents her with. Saw him out at the 3 jolly topers, marching along bareheaded, and his eldest boy carrying one in a market net. The squalors, poor thing. Then having to give the breast year after year, all hours of the night. Selfish, those TTs are. Dog in the manger. Only 1 lump of sugar in my tea, if you please. He stood at Fleet Street crossing. Luncheon interval, a 6 penny, at Rose. Must look up that ad in the National Library. An 8 penny in the Burton. Better. On my way. He walked on past Bolton's Westmoreland House. T. I forgot to tap Tom Kernan. 3 days. Imagine groaning on a bed with a vinegar handkerchief around her forehead, her belly swollen out. Phew, dreadful, simply. Child's head too big, forceps. Doubled up inside her, trying to butt its way out blindly, groping for the way out. Kill me, that would. Lucky Molly got over hers lightly. They ought to invent something to stop that. Life with hard labour. Twilight sleep idea. Queen Victoria was given that. 9 she had. Good lair. Old woman that lived in a shoe, she had so many children. Suppose he was consumptive. Time someone thought about it instead of gassing about what was it about, instead of gassing about the pensive bosom of the silver effulgence. Flapdoodle to feed fools on. They could easily have big establishments. Whole thing quite painless. Out of all the taxes, give every child born 5 quid at compound interest up to 21. 5% is 100 shillings and 5 tiresome pounds. Multiply by 20 decimal system. Encourage people to put by money. Save 110 and a bit. 21 years. Want to work it out on paper? Come a tidy sum. More than you think. Not stillborn, of course. They're not even registered. Trouble for nothing. Funny sight, 2 of them together, their bellies out. Molly and Mrs. Moisel. Mother's meeting. This retires for the time being, then returns. How flat they look after all of a sudden. Peaceful eyes, weight off their minds. Old Mrs. Thornton was a jolly old soul. All my babies, she said. The spoon of pap in her mouth before she fed them. Oh, that's yum. Get her hand crushed by old Tom Wall's son. His first bow to the public. Head like a prize pumpkin. Snuffy Dr. Murren, people knocking them up at all hours. God's sake, doctor. Wife in her throes. And keep them waiting months for their fee. To attendance on your wife. No gratitude in people. Humane doctors, most of them. Next, please.
Before the huge high door of the Irish House of Parliament, a flock of pigeons flew. Their little frolic after meals. Who will we do it on? I picked the fellow in black. Here goes. Here's good luck. Must be thrilling from the air. Upjohn, myself, and Owen Goldberg up in the trees near Goose Green, playing the monkeys. Mackerel, they called me. A squad of constables debouched from College Street, marching in Indian file. Goose step. Food, heated faces, sweating helmets, patting their truncheons. After their feed with a good load of fat soup under their belts. Policemen's lot is oft a happy one. They split up in groups and scattered, saluting towards their beats. Let out to graze. Best moment to attack one in pudding time. A punch in his dinner. A squad of others marching irregularly, rounded Trinity railings, making for the station. Bound for their troughs. Prepared to receive cavalry. Prepared to receive soup. He crossed under Tommy Moore's roguish finger. They did right to put him up over a urinal, meeting of the waters. Ought to be places for women. Running into cake shops, settled by Hat Street. There is not in this world a valley. Great song of Julia Morgan's. Kept her voice up to the very last. Pupil of Michael Balfe's, wasn't she? He gazed after the last broad tunic. Nasty customers to tackle. Jack Power could a tale unfold. Father of Gino. If a fellow gave them trouble, being lagged, they let him have it hot and heavy in the bridewell. Can't blame them after all, with the job they have, especially the young hornies. The horse policeman, the day Joe Chamberlain, was given his degree in Trinity. He got a run for his money. My word, he did. His horse's hoofs clattering after us down Abbey Street. Lucky I had the presence of mind to dive into Manning's, or I was souped. He did come a wallop, by George. Must have cracked his skull on the cobblestones. I oughtn't to have got myself swept along with those medicals and the Trinity jibs and their mortarboards, looking for trouble. Still, I got to know that young Dixon who dressed the sting for me in the Mater, and now he's in Hollow Street with Mrs. Purefoy. Wheels within wheels. Police whistle in my ears still. All skedaddled. Why he fixed on me? Give me in charge. Right, here it began. Next, please.
Up the Boers! 3 cheers for DeWitt. We'll hang Joe Chamberlain on the sour apple tree. Silly Billies, mob of young cubs yelling their guts out, Vinegar Hill. The Butter Exchange Band. Few years' time, half of them magistrates and civil servants. War comes on, into the army, helter-skelter. Same fellows used to, weather on the scaffold high. Never know who you're talking to. Corny Kelleher, he has Harvey Duff in his eye. Like that Peter or Dennis or James Carey that blew the gaff on the Invincibles. Member of the corporation, too. Egging raw use on to get in the know all the time, drawing Secret Service pay from the castle. Drop him like a hot potato. Why those plainclothes men were always courting slaveries. Easily twig a man used to uniform. Square pushing up against the back door. Muller a bit. Then the next thing was on the menu. And who is the gentleman does be visiting there? Was the young master saying anything? Peeping Tom through the keyhole. Decoy duck. Hot-blooded young student fooling around her fat arms ironing. Are those yours, Mary? I don't wear such things. Stop, or I'll tell the missus on you. Out half the night. Next.
There are great times coming, Mary. Wait till you see. Ah, get along with you. Great times coming. Barmaids too. Tobacco shop girls. James Stephen's idea was the best. He knew them. Circles of 10, so that a fellow couldn't get round on more than his own ring. Sinn Féin. Back out, you get a knife. Hidden hand. Stay in. The firing squad. Turnkey's daughter got him out of Richmond. Off from Lusk. Putting up in Buckingham Palace Hotel under their very noses. Garibaldi. You must have a certain fascination. Parnell. Arthur Griffiths is a square-headed fellow, but he has no go in him for the mob, or gas about our lovely land, gammon and spinach, Dublin Bakery Company's tea rooms, debating societies. That republicanism is the best form of government. That language question should take precedence over the economic question. Have your daughters inveigling them into your house. Stuff them with meat and drink. Michaelmas goose. Here's a good lump of thyme seasoning under your apron for you. Have a quart of goose grease before it gets cold. Half enthusiast, penny roll, and a walk with the band. No grace for the carver. The thought that the other chap pays best sauce in the world. Make themselves thoroughly at home. Show us over those apricots, meaning peaches. That's not far distant day. Home rule, sun rising up in the northwest. Next.
His smile faded as he walked. A heavy cloud hiding the sun slowly, shadowing Trinity's Shirley front. Trams passed one another, ingoing, outgoing, clanging. Useless words. Things go on same, day after day. Squads of police marching out, back. Trams in, out. Those two loonies mooching about. Dignam carted off. Mina Purifoy's swollen belly on a bed, groaning to have a child tugged out of her. One born every second somewhere, other dying every second. Since I fed the birds, 5 minutes. 300 kicked the bucket, other 300 born. Washing the blood off, all are washed in the blood of the Lamb. Bawling, man. City full, passing away. Other city full coming, passing away too. Other coming on, passing on. Houses, lines of houses, streets, miles of pavements, piled up bricks, stones, changing hands, this owner, that. Landlord never dies, they say. Other steps into his shoes when he gets his notice to quit. They buy the place up with gold, and still they have all the gold. Swindle in it somewhere, piled up in cities, worn away age after age. Pyramids in sand, built on bread and onions, slaves. Chinese wall, Babylon, big stones left, round towers, rest rubble, sprawling suburbs, jerry-built, Kerwin's mushroom houses, built of breeze, shelter for the night. No one is anything. This is the very worst hour of the day. Vitality, dull, gloomy, hate this hour, feel as if I had been eaten and spewed. Next, please.
Provost House. The Reverend Dr. Salmon, tinned salmon. Well tinned in there. Wouldn't live in it if they paid me. Hope they have liver and bacon today. Nature abhors a vacuum. The sun freed itself slowly and lit glints of light among the silver ware in Walt Sexton's window opposite, by which John Howard's Parnell passed, unseeing. There he is, the brother, image of him, haunting face. Now that's a coincidence. Of course, hundreds of times you think of a person and don't meet him, like a man walking in his sleep. No one knows him. Must be a corporation meeting today. They say he never put on the city marshal's uniform since he got the job. Charlie Bulger used to come out on his high horse, cocked hat, puffed, powdered, and shaved. Look at the woebegone walk of him, eating a bad egg. Poached eyes on ghost. I have a pain. Great man's brother. His brother's brother. He'd look more on the city charger. He'd look nice on the city charger. Drop into the DBC probably for his coffee. Play chess there. His brother used men as pawns. Let them all go to pot. Afraid to pass a remark on him. Freeze them up with that eye of his. That's the fascination. The name. All a bit touched. Mad Fanny and his other sister, Mrs. Dickinson, driving about with scarlet harness, bolt upright like Surgeon McArdle. Still, David Shee beat him for South Meath, simply for the Chiltern Hundreds and retire into public life. Apply for the Chiltern Hundreds and retire into public life. The Patriots' banquet, eating orange peels in the park. Simon Dedalus said when they put him in Parliament that Parnell would come back from the grave and let him out of the House of Commons by the arm. Of the two-headed octopus, one of whose heads is the head upon which the ends of the world have forgotten to come, while the other speaks with a Scotch accent, the tentacles. They pass from behind Mr. Bloom along the curbstone, beard and bicycle, young woman. And there he is, too. Now that's really a coincidence. Second time. Coming events cast their shadows before. With the approval of the eminent poet, Mr. Joe Russell. That might be Lizzie Twigg with him. A.E. What does that mean? Initials, perhaps? Albert Edward, Arthur Edmund, Alphonsus Ed Esquire. What was he saying? The ends of the world with a Scotch accent. Tentacles? Octopus? Something occult. Symbolism. Holding forth. She's taking it all in, not saying a word. To aid gentlemen in literary work. Next, please.
His eyes followed the high figure in homespun beard and bicycle, a listening woman at his side, coming from the vegetarian. Only vegetables and fruit. Don't eat a beefsteak. If you do, the eyes of the cow will pursue you through all eternity. They say it's healthier. Wind and water, though. Tried it. Keep you on the run all day. Bad as a bloater, dreams all night. Why do they call that thing they gave me nut steak? Nutarians, fruitarians, to give you the idea that you are eating rump steak. Absurd. Salty, too. They cook in soda, keep you sitting by the tap all night. Her stockings are loose over her ankles. I detest that, so tasteless. Those literary, ethereal people, they are all dreamy, cloudy, symbolistic aesthetes they are. I wouldn't be surprised if it was that kind of food you see produces like waves of the brain, the poetical. For example, one of those policemen sweating Irish stew into their shirts, you couldn't squeeze a line of poetry out of him. Don't know what poetry is even. Must be in a certain mood. The dreamy, cloudy gull waves over the waters dull. He crossed at Nassau Street corner and stood before the window of Yates and Son, pricing the field glasses. Or will I drop into old Harris's and have a chat with young Sinclair? Well-mannered fellow, probably at his lunch. Must get those old glasses of mine set right. Gers lenses, 6 guineas. Germans making their way everywhere. Sell on easy terms to capture trade, undercutting. Might chance on a pair in the railway lost property office. Astonishing the things people leave behind them in trains and cloakrooms. What do they be thinking about? Women, too, incredible. Last year, traveling to Ennis just to pick up that farmer's daughter's bag and hand it to her at Limerick Junction. Unclaimed money, too. There's a little watch up there on the roof of the bank to test those glasses by. His lids came down on the lower rims of his irides. Can't see it. If you imagine it's there, you can almost see it. Can't see it. Next, please.
He faced about and, standing between the awnings, held out his right hand at arm's length towards the sun. Wanted to try that often. Yes, completely. The tip of his little finger blotted out the sun's disk. Must be the focus where the rays cross. If I had black glasses. Interesting. There was a lot of talk about those sunspots when we were in Lombard Street West. Terrific explosions they are. There will be a total eclipse this year. Autumn sometime. Now that I come to think of it, that all fire falls at Greenwich time. It's the clock is worked by an electric wire from Dunsink. Must go out there for some first Saturday of the month. If I could get an introduction to Professor Joly or learn up something about his family, that would do too. Man always feels complimented. Flattery where least expected. Nobleman proud to be descended from some king's mistress, his foremother. Lay it on with a trowel. Cap in hand goes through the land. No, go in and blurt out what you know you're not to. What's parallax? Show this gentleman to the door. Ah, his hand fell again to his side. Next, please.
Never know anything about it. Waste of time. Gas bowls spinning about, crossing each other, passing. Same old ding dong always. Gas, then solid, then whirled, then cold, then dead, and shell drifting around. Frozen rock like that pineapple rock. The moon must be a new moon, she said. I believe there is. He went on by La Maison Claire. Wait, the full moon was the night we were Sunday fortnight exactly. There is a new moon. Walking down by the Talca. Not bad for a Fairview moon. She was humming. The young May moon, she's beaming, love. He, other side of her, elbow, arm, he. Glowworm's lamp is gleaming, love. Touch, fingers, asking, answer, yes. Stop, stop. If it was, must. Mr. Bloom, quick breathing, slowly walking past Adam Court. With a keep quiet relief, his eyes took note. There is street here, middle of the day, Bob Doran's bottled shoulders. On his annual bend, McCoy said. They drink in order to say or do something, or chercher la femme. Up in the coombe with chummies and streetwalkers, then the rest of the year as sober as a judge. Yes, thought so. Sloping into the Empire, gone. Plain soda would do him good. Her Pat Kinsella had his harp theatre before. Bitbread ran the Queen's broth to the boy. Dion Boucicault, business with his harvest moon face in a pokey bonnet. 3 purty maids from school. How time flies, eh? Showing long red pantaloons under his skirts. Drinkers, drinking, laughed spluttering, their drink against their breath. More power, Pat. Coarse red, fun for drunkards. Guffaw and smoke. Take off that white hat. His parboiled eyes. Where is he now? Beggar somewhere. The harp that once did starve us all. I was happier then, or was that I? Or am I, now I? 28 I was. She 23 when we left Lombard Street West. Something changed. Could never like it again after Rudy. Can't bring back time. Like holding water in your hand. Would you go back to then? Just beginning then, would you? Are you not happy in your home? You poor little naughty boy. Wants to sew on buttons for me. I must answer. Write it in the library. Next.
Grafton Street, gay with housed awnings, lured his senses. Muslin prints, silk dames and dowagers, jungle of harnesses, hoof thuds low ringing in the baking causeway. Thick feet that woman has in the white stockings. Hope the rain mucks them up on her. Country bred chaw bacon. All the beef to the heels were in. Always gives a woman clumsy feet. Molly looks out of plumb. He passed, dallying, the windows of Braun Thomas, silk mercers, cascades of ribbons, flimsy china silks. A tilted urn poured from its mouth a flood of blood-hued poplin, lustrous blood. The Huguenots brought that here. The cows are song Tara Tara. Great chorus that, Tari Tara, must be washed in rainwater. Meyer beer, Tara, bum, bum, bum. Pin cushions. I'm a long time threatening to buy one, sticking them all over the place. Needles and window curtains. He bared slightly his left forearm, scrape, nearly gone. Not today, anyway. Must go back for that lotion. For her birthday, perhaps. June, July, August, September 8th. Nearly 3 months off. Then she might like it. Women won't pick up pins. Say it cuts low. Gleaming silks, petticoats on slim brass rails, rays or flat silk stockings. Useless to go back. Had to be. Tell me all. High voices, sun-warm silk, jingling harnesses, all for a woman, home and houses, silk webs, silver, rich fruits, spicy from Jaffa. Agenda Natayam, wealth of the world. A warm, healing plainness settled down on his brain. His brain yielded, perfume of embraces all him assailed. With hungered flesh obscurely, he mutely craved to adore. Next.
Okay. Thank you very much. I think we'll stop here for today. Once again, we have Mr. Bloom being rescued by images of warm flesh. let's see, today, let's see, next week is gonna be the 6th of July. Um, somebody have the page for Wordsworth?
150.
150, okay. And Penguin, Donna, you have a
168.
68, okay.
Modern library is 166.
Madeline, okay. 166. And I've got the Gabler's 138. So any others we need to make note of? Okay, I guess we're there. I like the way that Joyce set it up when Bloom asked Mrs. Bream about Mrs. Beaufort. And she tells him about Mrs. Mina Purfoy.
Mhm. Ah,
And so, and then we know that's setting it up because he's going to end up going to the hospital
Yeah,
on Hollis Street.
yeah, changes, it affects the plot. Interesting.
Yeah, it's another one of those little random things, unfolds over time. Yeah. I like contrasting all these thoughts of Bloom with going back to Proteus and when Stephen's walking along the beach and the differences in their thought patterns.
Well, again, I think Bloom's thoughts are only Stephen's thoughts, that Stephen's writing this book. So,
Mm,
and I think I saw more evidence again at the end of the Aeolus so-called episode, where he's writing notes to himself in the text. He says, "Dublin, I have much to learn."
mhm.
And then
Nice.
he actually comes out and thinks of what the name of the book is going to be that he's writing. He says Dubliners.
Yeah, I was wondering about that.
Yeah, noticed.
That's very intriguing
Mm.
because it's hard to say who's thinking that. Is that Joyce or is that Stephen?
Well,
Who
it's
says-
to me, I think it's Stephen, but it's, if Stephen is Joyce, if you think the portrait of the artist is the story of Joyce, even though, but it's, it's this whole book, it's all about how a writer writes, and that's Joyce's writing, but he's describing how a writer writes through the character of Stephen, who is a writer. And so we have, going back to the third episode when he's on the beach and he first sees the two women who climb up Nelson's pillar. By the time he's in this episode, because the first thing he does, he sees two women walking and he automatically right away, he makes up a name. Oh, that's Florence McCabe. She's blah, blah, blah. She's doing, maybe they're midwives. What could be in that bag? He's creating stories all the time about everything he sees and everything he experiences. And then by the time he's telling the story to Professor McHugh, he's fleshed it out with other episodes, other things he's come across. Like he heard the woman saying, plums 8 for a penny when he was walking himself from Sandy Mount to into town. He's heard all of these things and he incorporates them into the story he's telling about these two women. And by now he's got them, well, Florence McCabe, and she's from Fumbleys Lane in Black Pits. He's expanded on everything. It's Ann Kearns is her companion. He's given her a name. Beautifully done.
Mm.
So are they anywhere near Nelson's? As he's telling the story about the two ladies and going up into the tower, are they anywhere near the tower there?
No.
Yeah, well, the offices would have been not too far from there. The newspaper offices.
Mm.
But
They were all
Fumbley Lane and Black Pits are quite a distance away.
Oh yeah.
They're just off Clanbrazil Street, and they're both still extant.
Right. Yeah. No, that's nowhere near Nelson's Pillar. They've had to walk quite a distance from near the cathedral, all the way up to O'Connell Street to the Nelson's Pillar. But it's so great having been in Dublin last June. I can follow Bloom past Nelson's Pillar and onto O'Connell Bridge, across the street, down by Thomas More's statue, right in front of Trinity College, around the corner. He goes around the corner and there he is at Grafton Street, and he walks up Grafton Street and he's going to turn onto Duke Street. It's so nice to having been there and seen those places to be able to
visualize
where he is.
The James Joyce Centre do guided walks of the Lestrygonians chapter. And I did it a couple of months back. And even though I'm in the city centre quite a lot, I didn't realize that there are these plaques on the ground which mark all the various sort of points during the Lestrygonians chapter. And as you said, Bill, it takes you down O'Connell Street, across the bridge, and all the way up to Stephen's Green, I think. So it's fascinating, but it makes it very real.
Right.
Well, I was interested this time. Stephen is walking with the professor, and he starts the story. And then what's the editor's name who
Crawford.
Oh yeah, Miles Crawford.
Crawford joins them, and yet Stephen continues the story even though Crawford has missed the initial comments, and I thought that was kind of interesting and curious, and I hope to go back and take a closer look at that to see how that fits in.
That Howard Duff in his eye that was mentioned about Corny Kelleher, that's from a character in a play by Dion Bosco called The Charon. Howard Duff plays is a character who's a police informant who gets somebody into jail, one of the main characters, And so right from the beginning, Stephen thinks that Corny Kelleher, or says that Corny is some kind of a police informant. And it comes it's also in the song that he always is singing, Corny Kelleher's Tourlem Tourlem Tay. That's an old music hall song about a policeman and a girl, and the policeman's pumping her for information and things. He's just using her for information. And that's Corny. That's the song Corny Kelleher's always seems to be humming or whistling or singing. It's really
There's also the mention of the song by Percy French, and he just gives a line of it. There is not in this wide world a valley.
Oh, that's Thomas More.
Oh, sorry, Thomas, you're right. Yes,
They-
Because he's walking right past Thomas's, right, the meeting of the waters.
that's right.
And that's the name of the song is the meeting of the waters.
At least they've moved the meeting of the waters from under Thomas More's statue.
Yeah.
It's gone.
Well, I guess there used to be a public urinal there.
There was, yeah.
Yeah, which was he talks about greenhouses, he's not talking about glass places for flowers. A greenhouse was a urinal, was a men's urinal, which were all over the city. Painted.
It had to be moved because it became a location for people taking drugs.
Yeah.
The fate of many public bathrooms.
Yeah.
and which wasn't a Joycean thing, but what happened to what do you call her, the woman in the jacuzzi? She used to be in.
The floozy in the jacuzzi.
Floozy in the jacuzzi.
And where
She was also called the whore in the sewer.
So her in the sewer. Yeah.
and
I
where,
did hear that.
and where did she go?
I think she found a suitable home somewhere else.
Yeah,
outside the
yeah,
city.
she was relocated, not done away
Yeah.
with, relocated.
Yeah.
That was not a pretty statue.
No, but everybody kept putting soap suds in it too, so that's
Yeah.
why
Yeah.
it's funny.
So where is it? I keep getting asked every time I go up Grafton Street. Tourists ask me where is the statue, and I thought it was at the bottom. And I just keep pointing down Grafton Street to at the side of Trinity. So you mean it's not there anymore?
It's gone, yeah.
Yeah, it's
Oh
gone.
no, it's gone a good way.
You can offer Molly Malone instead. She's just around the corner in Andrew Street.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh no, I've mixed them up. It's Molly Malone they're looking for. So Molly
Oh,
Malone
Molly
has
is still there.
Andrew Street.
She's
She's
still
opposite Andrew Street Post Office. And as you know, her breasts are very shiny from lads
From being polished.
from being polished, which is the subject of many photographs by tourists.
Yeah, the Anna Olivia was on O'Connell Street, wasn't it?
It was, yeah.
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 Mhm. And where's that gone?
I don't know.
I think the OPW may have it in a shed somewhere.
Oh dear, oh dear. I didn't know that about greenhouses. And I wish the Thomas More song, William, can you sing it? Does anybody know it?
Yeah.
There is not in this wide world a valley so sweet as the vale in whose bosom the bright waters meet. That's all I can give you.
Oh, the last rays of
I'm done.
feeling and life must depart ere the blooms of that valley shall fade from my heart.
Well done.
Thank you. Because I think it's so musical that I think we almost need the songs to go with it.
Yeah.
Yep.
The last verse starts sweet vale of Avoca, and that phrase comes up elsewhere, and that verse of the song comes up in the text elsewhere when I think when Bloom's remembering the song or thinking of it. I can't remember where, but I know Sweet Vale of Avoca shows up.
We had a singing class in primary school, and that was one of the songs that we sang.
Ted, I think Thomas More sadly has been largely forgotten by people. I don't think his songs are as well known or sung as they should be, certainly not as they once were.
It was of its time, you know?
Yeah. But they still stand up. They're still beautiful.
Oh, the beautiful songs. Yeah, lovely melodies.
Lovely melodies. And
As they said, Moore's melodies. You know?
Very Morris melodies, but also very, very touching sentiment. And almost all of them, or many of them, let's say, like this one, The Meeting of the Waters, it's about friendship and friends, missing your friend, being with your friend. And so many of his other songs are about on the same theme. And I can't remember, I'm not going to be able to remember them now, but can't think of it.
Okay, shall we call it a session? And
Just before you go, Duncan, you mentioned last week that you'd be starting portrait sometime in July.
yes, that will be next Monday's July 3rd. So we're going to start portrait on the 10th.
And how does one access the link for that?
I'll send it out. It's actually going to be the same link as we're using for the Monday book club because it's part of the Monday book club.
Okay.
So I'll send that to you.
When you say you'll send it out, that'll be on Facebook, is it?
No, I think I'll send it out. I don't put the Zoom links directly on Facebook.
Okay.
What I usually do on Facebook is I just say, if anybody's interested, get in touch with me. And then I send it directly to them. So I believe, let's see.
Do you have my details?
I don't think I have.
I don't think so.
1 second. I'm just putting it up, Donna, and you can take a screenshot of it.
Okay.
Yeah,
Is that
there we
okay?
go.
So,
Let's see, what did you put?
There you go.
Did you put up the, oh yeah, there it is. So there's that. And then if you can, and I mean, those are for people who use the Zoom app. Some people actually don't use the Zoom app and you have to.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you have to put that longer thing that you just click on and it does it through a browser.
I'm sorry, Anne. Where is it?
I put it into chat. So if you bring up chat and take a screenshot.
Yeah, if you can bear with me just for a second, I can get it.
Can you see it, Donna?
Not yet.
Oh, okay.
It's there.
It's hiding on me. It's in chat. It's in chat, you say?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's in chat.
And is it under Anne's iPad?
And
Yes.
I'm going to give me just a second. I'm going to put the whole
Link.
on there.
Yeah, the Zoom link's easier just to click on.
Perfect.
But it won't be hot, Duncan, unless you email it to him. It won't be a hot.
Okay.
It won't be a hot link.
Yeah. Okay. So here's what I'll do. I'll put here's my email.
Okay.
Okay. So there's that. So if you just send me an email.
Okay. I'm sorry, Duncan, but where is your email?
Oh, the chat. So you need to go down to the bottom of the screen.
Okay.
It's in chat, just under Anne's last message.
I've got it. Thank you.
Duncan Etchelson at Gmail. Great.
At gmail.com. Yeah. So, yeah. So you just send me, just say, hey, send me the link for portrait. And then I'll send you the whole long invitation.
Excellent.
So you can, however you like to access things.
That's great. Thank you very much for that.
Yeah. Oh, I'm glad you're interested. I think it's going to be a whole lot of fun to read portrait.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's been 2 years, I think, back in 2020 when I first got involved with the Sweeney's folks. I think we finished up portrait in the summer or the fall.
Over the summer, yeah.
Nothing after that.
No,
Right.
So I'm ready. Yeah.
Very
I'm
good.
ready. Okay.
I have to say,
So-
I went into Sweeney.
Yeah.
I went into Sweeney on Wednesday, and we started reading it, and there was 5 of us there because I
very
have
good.
meditation on Monday nights, and I thought, oh, do I throw in meditation and go to book club? And Sweeney's are doing it at lunchtimes as well, just to say, but it may not be.
They're not-
Maybe
they're-
we'll be
they're not-
broadcasting.
Yeah, they're
Pardon?
not they're not zooming it though.
No, it's
Yeah,
That's
in
good.
America it would be. It's just you pop in and you read it for anybody in Dublin.
Right.
Yeah. That's good. I'm glad, the more
Okay.
reading and the more venues and all that, the better, in
Mhm.
my humble opinion.
Absolutely. We fully agree.
Yes.
Okay, well, I'm gonna click the
Okay.
red button right now and we will.
Thank
get
you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye,
Bye,
everyone.
everybody.
Thank you, Duncan. Bye-bye.
Thank you all
Bye-bye.
very